Okay, let me see. Jonathan, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes. You can hear me?
Yep, I made you host now.
Perfect.
Okay.
So then I do...
So you can now admit everyone, and I'll start. Yeah, if you go on the bottom where it says, go live.
Live on Facebook or live on Custom Live?
Yeah, custom, custom live streaming. Yeah.
Yep.
That's it. Okay, fine. And then, yeah, there's nothing else you need to do. So just,
Let people in.
just admit everybody, run the meeting, and when you're done, close the meeting. I'll do the YouTube one.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, Luca.
All right. Thanks, Jonathan. All right.
Have a good
Bye.
day. Bye.
Bye.
Morning, everyone. Hello, hello.
Good morning, Jonathan. Good morning.
So this is a hijacked event. Luca is not around today, so I'm taking over.
Great, great.
So I hope you're all ready to hear me splurge on about Cardano and my love for obscure cryptocurrencies like that. Yeah, so Luca apologizes. He's had a rammed couple of weeks, and today was a big one in terms of some of the building stuff he's doing in London. So he's out of action, but he's handed over to me to host today, and he will be live streaming. He's going to switch it all on from his phone, so hopefully that will all work. Yeah, we're auto recording, so we should all be set up and ready to go. I've got a few things to share with you. They're not quite probably as groundbreaking as Luca's normal broad macroeconomic stuff, but hopefully you'll find them interesting. Certainly it's the sort of stuff that sits at the top of my head. So let me get going with sharing my screen. So there's a few bits of news coming out today that affect crypto, or came out yesterday and the last couple of days that are affecting crypto. One of the things that I don't know if you've noticed is that Gary Gensler, the chairman of the SEC, our favorite crypto ally, is coming under fire really from the judicial system and the political system in the States now. So he was brought in front of the Financial Services Committee and given a bit of a grilling by some crypto pro representatives, and they are really taking the stance that Gary Gensler is holding back the rise and adoption of crypto, particularly in the US, which sits contrary to the desire of the people in power, effectively. So if crypto succeeds there, then it releases a whole load of actually, I'm admitting people at the same time. I wonder if I could maybe ask somebody to co-host for me. That might help me with some work. Any volunteers? Otherwise, I'll.
Yeah, Jonathan, I'll help you.
Eric, thank you. So let me find your item and co-host. There we go. Thanks, Eric. So yeah, Gary is coming under a bit of scrutiny, and this is one of the positive signals for crypto, because really the position the SEC are taking at the moment, which is very aggressive against crypto, is only doing the United States harm. Because long term, if you believe that currencies will be digital, then trying to defeat them at this stage or bad mouthing the technology at this stage is really going to cause yourself problems down the road. So that's interesting to see. This video is by Guy from Coin Bureau, who's a popular UK-based crypto enthusiast. Speaks very well from economic perspective and is also very clued up on all the smaller projects to the larger projects. So well worth a listen. I'll drop these links into the chat, possibly at the end. That might make it smoother. You can pick them up and watch them at all. I tend to find quite a bit of video content, as that's how I like to absorb my news. So hopefully this will not come too dull across in what I'm speaking about, but you can catch up on the videos yourself afterwards, do a bit of research yourself. So in correlation with legal activity in the States, there's another bit of news this week. On the 3rd of October, starts the trial of Sam Bankman-Fried, who has affected probably all the lives of everyone on this call. This SBF, as he's commonly known, was the founder of FTX exchange, and the crash of that exchange through mismanagement was what caused the largest fall in prices of the crypto market last year. And that's really where we saw the huge dive into the bear market that we've been suffering through, and it caused the collapse of several crypto-based projects who perhaps were not so financially sound. So the problem with actually I'm not showing the tab on mine. So the problem with Sam Bankman-Fried was that he was a dreamer and someone who was very well related to the political elite. So his parents were college mates with Gary Gensler from the SEC. And through the rise of FTX, which relied a lot on donations, funding of the politicians who would be able to cast favorable judgments on his particular centralized exchange, really set a path to greed and corruption. So with that relationship between his parents and Gary Gensler, they were lecturers, they were lawyers in economics, and throughout the rise of FTX, they actually managed to squirrel away about $20 million worth of property and assets from FTX's pockets. And FTX was mismanaging funds left, right, and center. So they had their centralized exchange, which is where a lot of our projects and ourselves may have put our money to be able to trade the currencies that we hold. And then they also had a trading arm, Alameda, which was supposed to be separate. So according to regulators, then mixing of funds, customer funds, with your own investment activities is illegal. And yet that was going on to a very high level. And throughout that process, money was squirreled off left, right, and center. So Sam Bankman-Fried ended up with 50 million estates in the Bahamas. His parents had a 16.5 million estate. And now the liquidator or administrator who's come to take over FTX as an entity is trying to recover some of those funds. So they're actually going after Sam Bankman-Fried, who's in jail. Honestly, it reads like a soap opera, some of the stuff that he's been up to, but he actually was not granted bail. He was initially given it, and then it was rescinded because he went after some of the witnesses who would be speaking against him in trial. So this is not a nice guy. We don't have to feel sorry for him. And I think in total, the crimes laid up against him could amount to a 100-year jail sentence. So we hope that goes towards a state of justice that we can all live with and move on from. So that bit of news is coming up. His trial starts on the 3rd, and movements against his parents will carry on as well. 26 million totally. So again, I'll drop these links into the chat afterwards so you can go and do a bit of your own scandalous reading. Another thing that's impending this week is that the US government is out of money again. And when that happens, they effectively have to pause. So a lot of the government activity ceases, and that is looking like it's very likely. They've got until the end of this month to get additional funding in place, and both halves of the political house in the States are not seeing eye to eye. They're not releasing the funds. They can't agree on it. So it will just mean a pause of the government. That will push back lots of regulation activity. And that affects the crypto world in a couple of ways. The largest is that actually there are 7 or 8 applications for adoption of Bitcoin-based ETFs. And that is really seen as the next big hurdle for Bitcoin's adoption and legitimacy in the eyes of the regulators in the States. And of course, what happens in the States affects the whole world. So we'll see how that turns out. But so far, what the SEC has done, because they're the body responsible for approving ETFs, is that they have really just kicked the can down the road. They've pushed it back and back as far as they can to delay any judgment. My cynical mind says that's because they are busy working on central bank digital currencies that will come in and remove our freedoms, as opposed to allowing decentralized finance to thrive. But that may be just me. I don't know. You can hold your opinion as well and state it freely so far. So this delay of the government functioning in the US will likely mean that further of these ETF applications will get pushed down the road. So far, I think 4 out of the 8 that are ongoing have been pushed back. Actually, no, it's more than that. 5 of the 8 have been pushed back. And there were some new applications due for decision on the 6th, between the 16th and the 19th, I believe, and that's now been pushed back as well. So the first one that will really get a decision probably now, assuming that the same occurs for the rest of the ones that have not been pushed back as of yet, will be that it doesn't happen now until January 10th, I think it is, which is when the ARK Invest Bitcoin application will meet its final deadline for the government to make some kind of decision, the regulators make some kind of decision on. So that will be really the next time we hear any major is what I think will happen. Everyone who's aware of the impending Bitcoin halving next year and looking for the return of the bull market will probably have to wait until the new year to really see any kind of action in terms of legitimacy of Bitcoin and mass adoption of it by enterprises and the corporates. So there are the other Bitcoin ETFs that are up for approval, include ones from some big names, some big hitters. I've got a list of them here. Let me just pull up GlobalX, Bitwise, BlackRock, which I'm sure you've heard of. BlackRock, in fact, interestingly, is a bit of an aside, has an AI engine that is the best trading bot and has been applied with huge success to the real estate markets. And it now, BlackRock as an entity owns more real estate than any other entity, I think, in the States, and is operating across the world. And they're now moving from large corporate purchases into residential. So, we're looking at a huge accumulation of wealth upwards, which is really what we are trying to relieve ourselves from by adopting crypto and adopting DeFi. So other ones include VanEck, Wisdom Tree, Invesco, Fidelity, Valkyrie, and of course the ARK ETF is one that's going to be put back to the 10th of January. So now, so very interesting. Contrary to that, and leading on from the little hint on AI, which I very much see, the technical advances that humans are making currently are accelerating at a huge pace. We're looking at crypto primarily in these calls, but really these are all very much tied in, interplayed with artificial intelligence and a whole load of other related technologies. So AI is always worth looking at as well in terms of it being the cutting edge of technology, the optimizations, efficiencies it can bring to our activities as a whole, whether that be research and analysis, due diligence, investment decisions, and the recent release of ChatGPT. The next generation of that is ChatGPT 4V. V stands for vision, and this is where we move from having an artificial engine interface that we plug text into and then get an interpretation of that text back to us. We can now actually start pointing that artificial intelligence engine at images, and it can interpret the content of those images and feed back information to us as well. So this blows up the potential for AI to quite a large degree. And I wanted to show you some of the recent advances. I think it was only out this week, but already people are testing out and applying it. It's not out publicly, it's available in a beta. But as an example of some of the abilities that AI is now starting to get. So as an example, this guy, Peter Yang, pointed his ChatGPT 4 engine at this extremely complicated parking sign in the States. And I know that personally, even though I've worked in technology my entire career, I've also worked as a software pioneer for capture systems. So we built out a parking system for the Rugby World Cup that visitors to the games would be able to register, buy their tickets online. That would be their parking space. When they turned up to the car parking sites, their number plate would be read and they'd be granted access without having to stop. So it was a really rapid flow parking mechanism. And so even though I've worked with signage and visual interpretation from a software perspective, this is an example of a sign that I would just struggle to understand. And so as an example of the power of AI, you can point the engine at this and say, can I park here for up to an hour starting at 4 o'clock? And it will give you the accurate answer. So can I park at this spot right now? Tell me in one line, yes, you can park for an hour starting 4 p.m. Now I would find that hugely useful just to have as an asset in my pocket, as an ally in interpreting the world around us. So that was I thought a remarkable example of what's possible. Going on with some other examples, the nuances of these artificial engines is really coming on strong. So this is I don't know what you call this, a meme maybe. And I struggle to understand these 4 quadrants right off the bat, but the general, give me 5 minutes and I interpret it and give you my take on what it says. Or alternative, you can just point GPT-4V at it and it will return this analysis. The image portrays the concept of group dynamics and perspectives. In the first panel, each individual has a different shape in mind, but they seem to think they're on the same page, indicated by the text. I'm glad we all agree. And we have this second panel, when the actual shape, a square, is revealed. Didn't pick up the circle and triangle was revealed, but it's evident that none of them are thinking the same thing, leading to a moment of realization with, oh, we're not thinking the same thing. The third panel, the figures are shown with different shapes again, but this time there's an aha moment, indicating a sudden realization or insight. And then the fourth panel is interpreted as, after some discussion or thought, all have come to consensus or a shared understanding as they all envision the same shape, and the caption reaffirms, I'm glad we all agree. So, that's a sort of synopsis of a group of humans coming to a consensus in some way, shape, or form, which is quite a philosophical concept regarding governance and decision making as a collective. and it's interpreted really accurately by this AI engine. Overall, it seems to highlight the importance of communication, understanding, and alignment in group settings. It suggests that even if individuals think they are aligned, without clear communication, misunderstandings can occur. But with effort and discussion, a shared understanding can be achieved. And so I may have come up with that synopsis after looking at it for 10 minutes and then writing for half an hour, but instantly GPT-4 can come back with that interpretation. And this will really help, cultures interpret other cultural works. And I believe that as a societies around the world will actually be able to, learn from each other. This in a school context could be extremely useful. I've seen examples where you can point GPT-4 at a scientific diagram of a human organ, and it will extrapolate out its understanding of that diagram really well. And again, it's even understanding humor and being able to interpret that for us. So particularly, again, cross-culturally, this is a very difficult thing to do. Humor doesn't interpret well from one culture to another necessarily. So, Germans are known for their unique dry sense of humor, which none of the rest of the world really understands. And that the US is known for its brash, easy to understand humor. And maybe there's a grounds here for using artificial intelligence to help smooth the differences between us as people. So the image appears to be humorous juxtaposition. On the left, there's a clip or image of someone perhaps folding a paper object. And on the right, someone looking at it intently with anticipation, waiting to see the outcome of the folding. Now we can see it as a picture of the Pope and a school playground toy that you can make out of origami. It interprets that correctly. The joke or humor in this might come from the exaggerated seriousness or anticipation the man on the right displays for what seems to be a simple and mundane act of folding paper on the left. It's a comedic way to show an overreaction or intense focus on something trivial. This type of meme format is common on social media, where contrasting images are used to convey a joke or message. So when you've got an artificial engine that can really analyze images and produce analysis of the humor involved, of the subtleties in interpretation that can occur, and communicate that, like here, it's relaying it to us in English. But of course, GPT-4 can relay that in any language that it's fed with. So this can be in Spanish or Portuguese or German or any of the myriad of small African dialects. And so really start to bring about the ability to learn from each other to a greater degree and understand each other, which is, what a lot of the fixes we need to see in our human race if we're going to survive as a species. It needs to happen. So I thought that was a really good insight. And of course, this can be applied to investments as well. I've seen instances of it being used to carry out market analysis and price movements and things like that. So again, we'll no doubt see that playing into some of the crypto bots that we get now, that trading bots and things like that. We're trying to see be used successfully, but of course are failing very, very, very hard. And so actually, if we've got something that's able to interpret markets, and markets are all driven by human emotions. And so if the AI can start to understand human emotions and humor and optimism, fear and greed, then it will have the ability to feed that back into its bots, which can then operate on the markets and maybe become better at it than they are currently. So all this field is growing and adopting all the time. It's fascinating stuff to me, certainly. So moving on from AI, another aspect of technology that, again, is cutting edge, but has been kind of hammered in recent time is augmented reality, virtual reality. We're still tied to these big goggles on faces and give us a nausea and a vertigo more than anything else. But actually, this is coming on really quite strong now. And this was the first convincing example to me of where we're going. So this is a very popular podcaster, Lex Friedman, who has worked with likes of Elon Musk and anybody and everybody really in scientific fields he's worked with, but he's now moving into politics and things as well. So he's worked with, spoken with the Prime Minister of Israel and to leaders in the Palestinian movement. And he's spoken with Elon Musk. And this is him working with Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook or now Meta. And so Meta have been working very hard on the AR, VR space for several years and really had just grief from the technical community. But now they've actually got to the point where they have brought in a level of realism and dynamic perception to their augmented reality, virtual reality worlds. Suddenly it's become convincing. So this is Lex in the States, in one state, talking to Mark Zuckerberg in another state. And we're seeing what they're seeing through their screens. But this is not video. This is a 3D model of them, an avatar that then has real texture maps and lighting effects applied to it to simulate the environments that they're actually sitting in. And then that's fed to them through their goggles. So they're seeing a 3D model. They can move backwards and forwards. Spatially, the audio changes as they move their heads left to right. The audio changes to suit as though they are sitting in the same environment as the person they're speaking to. And so even though they're thousands, I don't know how many miles apart, hundreds of miles, certainly probably thousands if they're in separate ends of the states, they're still able to then have a really intimate conversation. And Lex is quite an emotive speaker. And so he speaks about actually, his reactions to conversing with Mark was producing the same reactions as though they were sitting in the same room. And it looks very, very impressive. And this is just from a 2D perspective of us watching them sit and discuss the technology. But actually, when you're in it and immersed and you've got the goggles and the headphones on, I can imagine it being another level altogether. So this is where the technology is going. And actually, it might be that we're not sitting in Zoom calls like this for very much longer. It may be that we're sitting with goggles on or something, hopefully a bit less intrusive, but we're able to actually experience as though we're sitting face to face. So we don't, we can form global communities like IAW has spread out across multiple continents, but actually have the same intimacy and awareness of each other that we would as if we were in a conversation in the same room. Now we have that to a certain extent now with Zoom, but it's still very much you're seeing a portion of me and a specific angle of me. You're not able to move your head around and hear the nuances in my voice. And those sorts of nuances are really what, body language plays a huge part in accurate communication. And so just having the audio is not the same. Just having a 2D image is not the same. Whereas this actually could become more and more. And, this is at the moment, it's just the torso. So you've just got head and shoulders, but they can do full body mapping as well. So that will come down the road. You actually have gesticulation, and the Italians can then start to actually get their communication across again in a way that we could all appreciate. So yeah, fascinating direction. And this represents, millions, if not billions of dollars of investment and time, years of work. And suddenly, they've had no success up to this point in my mind. Suddenly it's clicked and it's like, actually, yeah, I can see me actually wanting to use this as opposed to me shuddering at the thought. So, an interesting thing. And again, this is a frontier of technology that is well worth looking at and considering when it comes to investment decisions and choosing how you build out your portfolio, crypto or otherwise. Another application of this technology, AI and video manipulation, is in this example as well. So this is somebody speaking about live translation, and I don't think me playing the audio will come across on the Zoom call. So I can let you watch these videos afterwards, but I encourage you to go out and find particularly this one, as I put it in the chat towards the end, because this is really impressive. It's not manipulated. This is all live recording of what he's doing. So he's speaking to camera in English, and it is instantly being translated into any other language that he chooses. And And what's most impressive is that his mouth now is actually a generated mouth. So that has been overlaid over his mouth, and it is using the mouth movements of the language that's been chosen for him to be heard in. So it's giving a convincing representation of him, because most of it is his original video, but just his mouth and his jaw has been re-rendered very seamlessly. In my mind, I can hardly tell that that's not, this is him speaking in French now. I can hardly tell that that's not him just speaking in his native tongue. And the audio is using his voice map. So it sounds like him as well, except it's speaking in French. And so actually, and this is happening all real time and live, there'll be probably a slight delay in it, but that lends itself to huge applications, of course, in being able to again interact globally with multiple languages now, and still be able to hear them, suddenly being able to hear them in your native tongue and see them in your native tongue as well, which again, you've got that body language coming across. So, we're really starting to see some really, this is science fiction stuff from 2 years ago, certainly 5 years ago. And, it would have been in the realm of magic as opposed to reality, but we're getting there now. So again, you keep your heads up, keep looking out at what's around, what's coming. And again, of course, there's the positives that I'm highlighting here, but there are also negatives to all of this as well. So our visage, our audio can all be faked. So deep fakes will become ever more and more convincing. So what we see in here will be harder and harder to interpret and understanding and know for real. And so, how we navigate our way through that is going to be down to our ability to stay ahead of what's being fed to us. Humans are very good at picking out what is fake, but we do get blindsided very easily as well. Social engineering and the scams and the fraudsters that are in, certainly in the crypto space, but beyond as well, are very good at playing on our weaknesses, our generosity of character to draw us into bad situations. So, being aware of what is possible as it arrives and adding that into then your understanding of what you're seeing and looking at is worthwhile. So my next bit of news that I want to point you at is this video by Eric Voorhees, who is an OG, an original gangster from the Bitcoin space. He had a particular, he came to my awareness strongly because he had a particularly powerful interview discussion with Sam Bankman-Fried about a fortnight before SBF was, the collapse of FTX and SBF being hunted by the FBI. And Eric was pointing out the flaws in the way that FTX was operating, in the way that SBF had, not been open and transparent, not holding to the original tenets of Bitcoin. And so he speaks through the origins of the white paper from Satoshi Nakamoto, which ended up becoming the Bitcoin white paper as it's known, and actually led to the adoption of several streams of technology to give us then what became the first digital store of value of note. And that's what crypto really is all about, is finding a new way to store value that is controlled by monetary policy outside of the hands of nation states, outside the hands of human emotions, that is written in advance. The policies are set out in code, and that's the way that currency operates, that store of value operates from then on, and can't be changed. That was the revelation that's given to us, and there it goes into exactly what that is. And he speaks extremely well. I've shown this to several people, newbies and OGs in the space, and they all agree that this actually, yes, this is why we're here. This is why we are looking at crypto. We know we're early to crypto, and so we're risk takers. and there is risk involved in all of it, but we're here because it promises a huge potential for a brighter future. And so I would really encourage you to particularly pick out this video from the ones that I'm showing you and have a listen. I think it's 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So yeah, well worth taking some time. And again, I'll put these into the chat. I'll also paste all these links into the IAW server and Lucas server and my own Fluid server as well, all on Discord. So if you want them beyond this call, you can get them there. This is Eric Voorhees, who is a strong proponent for Bitcoin, which is the sort of the top tier asset in the crypto space. So if you are looking to invest in crypto at all, then that's the one to look at first and do due diligence on. I personally am in the space now, committed to Cardano, which is a 3rd generation blockchain. So I thought I'd touch on that. The one that the person that inspired me to get into crypto as a whole really was Charles Hoskinson, who's the founder of Cardano. He was an OG in the Bitcoin space. Again, worked with those original, or certainly was a young player in the original era of the launch of the Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper and the cypherpunk community around it that was, bringing cryptography, mathematics into the field of value storage. And he then went on to be one of the founders of Ethereum, working with Vitalik Buterin and Gavin Wood, who's now working with Polkadot. Charles Hoskinson, very different character to either of those, but he's very generous towards all those founders in Ethereum. So Vitalik went on to take Ethereum onto its success of today, where it's the 2nd generation blockchain that actually added programmability into Bitcoin, as it were. So he allowed programs to be stored that could do more than just store value. They could actually carry out financial contracts, legal contracts, which was Ethereum's real innovation. That's why it's the 2nd largest player in the space. However, it has some technological shortcomings that I believe have been solved now by Charles Hoskinson's Cardano-based blockchain. And so that's why I'm into Cardano. And this video was what inspired me. He has a vision for pushing power to the edges of creating a banking system for the people who have no access to it, developing nations. And that resonated with me because it filled a purpose within me that was greater than just, wealth accumulation, but was more about, improving the human condition as a whole. And so, again, I'd encourage you to watch this. It's a bit longer. It's a 50-minute video, but that's what got me into Cardano. So if you're doing some diligence on Cardano as a 3rd generation blockchain, then I would say have a look at that video. Sorry, again, all videos. But again, this is an interview with Lex Friedman, who I just showed you, talking to Mark Zuckerberg. He's also had an interview. He has Lex has a specialty in long form podcasts. So he does interviews that last anywhere from an hour to, I don't know the longest one, but I think it's like 9 hours or something ridiculous. And he does these in one sitting. So they'll take a whole day of just sitting and talking about, this one intellectual talking with this one intellectual about a broad range of topics. And so he's done one with Charles Hoskinson, which is 5 hours long. So if you're interested in spending 5 hours of your life watching two guys talk, again, that's what I would recommend. But you have to be passionate to really get into that. But that's worth watch too. So I touch a bit more about Cardano as I've got the control. So Luca wouldn't stop me anyway, but I'm going to talk about it. So Cardano's differentiating points are that it's a 3rd generation crypto. And that means that it's got all the benefits of Bitcoin and all the learnings of Ethereum repackaged into Cardano. So Ethereum has some technological weaknesses that have been fixed within Cardano. Bitcoin has some technical weaknesses, like its power usage. which have been fixed in Cardano. So Cardano uses 1/20,000th of the energy consumption of Bitcoin. And so when you've got Bitcoin, its global network really sort of taking up the same energy consumption as an entire country, like the Netherlands, I think it's about equivalent to. Cardano would use 1/20,000th of that. So you can look at, you know, one power station running Cardano forever, as opposed to Bitcoin using however many it takes to run a nation. And you know, its consumption is decreasing over time as its efficiency is improved on. Cardano is a fully decentralized, it's the first fully decentralized in terms of block production network out there. So it has 3,500 node operators. These are the node operators are the ones who are responsible for creating new blocks. And so this is what's unique about crypto, is that the creation and the release of new tokens onto the market is controlled from the outset and can't be changed after that point on a real, you know, real crypto, as I like to think of them. So that's what Bitcoin brought, in that its release cycle is 50 Bitcoin per block, and its maximum release of tokens will be 27 million. Oh dear, I've lost my numbers. So Clinton 21 billion. Yes, and Cardano has got 48 billion. So it's more, but the release cycle is exactly the same. They're set in stone. So economic policy set by nation states can't play into it. Global pandemics can't say, quick, turn the money printers on. The release of Bitcoin, the release of Cardano will stay the same. Ethereum's a bit different, but it's got a good policy, but it's a different one to this as well. But that's the policy I like. With third generation blockchains, Bitcoin has that power consumption. Cardano, proof of stake versus proof of work, doesn't have that power consumption use. And of course, with the bear market, Cardano is now cheaper than it's been for 4 years. So if you wanted to look at it, now is a good time to look, do some due diligence on it. But you know, Cardano has been around since 2017, and in all that time, it has been in the top 10 of cryptocurrencies by market cap. So even though it's not really spoken about, and I can give you a reason for why it's not spoken about as well, it has actually been, you know, one of the top players this whole time. So you have new tokens rise and fall in that period, but Cardano has been there and stayed. And I believe that is because of the technical foundations, the fundamentals of the token and of the technology that supports it. So well worth a look. The reason it's not talked about is because the launch of the token generally is done at the behest of venture capital. So you'll attract a whole load of investment from people looking to make a buck. You'll launch your token. A certain proportion of it will go to the founding team, certain portion will go to the investors, and certain portion will then be put out to market. And with Cardano, that model was very, very conservative in what it was given to founding team, and none was given to venture capitalists, and the investors were all people who bought in to the token originally. It was launched in East Asia because the crypto market was launching tokens left, right, and center in the US, and it really attracted a whole load of money looking for a quick buck. And so Charles Hoskinson took it to Asia and really worked there, get it launched. So there's a lot of Japanese who hold large amounts of the token because they bought in early. But there's no venture capital money in it, so there's nobody looking to sell and gain a buck. And so its rise has been very slow paced compared to some of the other tokens that we've seen come from nowhere, like Solana. But because it's got its technical fundamentals correct, because it's got its token launch correct, I believe it's got sustainability, you know, into the future. and again, that the purpose behind the token, behind the technology, really resonates with me. There's a vision for banking the unbanked, connecting the unconnected, and all these nice little buzzwords, buzz phrases that resonate with me. And so as part of that offering out there and it being spoken about openly by the founder, I then said, yeah, this is the place for me. This is where I want to be putting my time and effort. So now I'm a node operator on the Cardano blockchain, and several of you, thank you, have delegated to my stake pool and taken part in the A Starter pre-launch token sale. And I hold my own calls half an hour after Lucas each Friday morning as well, that you're welcome to come in, and it's more of a workshop, so you can ask me questions, stop and interrupt me as and when you wish. So yeah, that's my bit of spiel about Cardano. So I'm kind of winding up now. You can have a look at my pool if you want to read more about Cardano on this link as well. This is really what the benefits are, what crypto brings, what DeFi brings, as opposed to centralized exchanges and just market economics looking to increase your funds. You can actually look at being the bank, about becoming self-sovereign over your own assets, about not letting third parties hold your assets while you're earning from them. These are all capabilities that are within DeFi and not necessarily within some of the crypto projects that you may be seeing and being exposed to. There's a whole load of stuff that you can learn about within as well. So I also have a video if you want to go through and look at how to stake within Cardano, and look at, it's got some good security tips in there as well. So if you want to see what I talk about week to week, that's a good taster for it. It's a half-an-hour video that really takes you through password security, seed phrase storage, through to becoming self-sovereign, having a self-sovereign wallet. And there's lots of other crypto things that I do touch on as well within the space. And of course, I do spend a good amount of time looking at new tokens in the space as well. So that's the prepared content. We got 10 more minutes if anybody has any questions they want to throw at me or things you want me to expand on at all. Do please jump in now. Let me stop the share and see some faces.
Oops.
Hi, Kim.
Hi, I guess when you're talking about the AI stuff, we've all been so, we're worried about security and protection of our financial assets, but I'm just thinking, how about our identity, our voice, our face? If they're doing this and they're recording things and manipulate it, it's almost like they can somebody can go off and create a virtual you, like they can go off if if there's identity theft. This is just almost like it's the next phase of it, and it's going to be almost like legal, because what regulations are going to be able to put around it. There's some great things, but I don't know. That's what I kind of see a little bit of maybe a drawback.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, and that's really why I encourage you to stay up with it, because if we're not aware of what's coming, then we're not aware, we're not equipped to know how to deal with it. And it is going to be the case that we are not equipped to deal with a lot of what is coming, but we are the ones who still have a hand on the switch at the moment. So let's be engaged, learning as much as we can, speaking about it as much as we can, talking about the threats as well as the opportunities, and just learning together, because that's the only way. We are the minority. The people we speak to day to day are the majority, and we can have an influence there, and we can expose these things, and that's the only real way that we can bring about change, is through participating. And so I'm and that's one of the big things about Cardano as well, is always talked about governance and decision making as a whole. I'll drop my last links in there. I know that's doubled up. Sorry, 1 second. Can't do two things at once. So that's the last set of links. So yeah, so governance as a whole is really important, because we need to be making decisions on how rapidly we release this technology, about who we allow to use this technology, about monopolies within that space, and I am very torn, particularly around AI, about its use and adoption and release, because at the moment, at the forefront of the field, I'd probably put OpenAI, the team behind ChatGPT. I'd probably put them at the forefront. They're the cutting edge. They're the ones that are producing artificial intelligence engines, which are feeling more and more scarily like artificial general intelligence, because that's the real threat that's coming at us. When we have humans using AI to manipulate faces and things like that's one problem. But actually, when we've got an AI engine having its own agenda that we don't understand, because it's almost like alien technology, that's when the biggest threat to humans, because humans ultimately need other humans to survive, whereas an AGI doesn't. So we have to operate and engage where we are, and try and bring regulation on what we're able to control now, so that we have some kind of chance down the road. And there's a whole different take on it. OpenAI started out as open source advocates. All this technology they were building was open and public, so everyone could go and look at it, see it, assess it, test it. Since they started getting close to, they had massive breakthroughs, and suddenly they had employees thinking, "Oh, I'm talking to a real thing. I want to get out." and so then at that point they said, "Okay, let's close source it," and which completely reversal from their original founding precepts. And Elon Musk was part of that founding board and left the board because he didn't like the direction it was going. They were looking for more and more investment, and Microsoft had put $100 million into OpenAI. And so really it's become a siloed engine. It's behind a knowledge wall now that we don't have access to as the public, that governments don't have access to. It's a private entity that holds that technology, has exclusive access to it, and is releasing it piece by piece, because I don't necessarily I don't necessarily hate them for it. I am scared by it, because they're now in control and they're a private entity. And is that how we really should have the world set up? So that, really powerful technology. I mean, would we be happy with private entities holding all the nuclear codes? No, we really want that in the hands of a governance system architecture. So nation states are the best we have of governance at the moment. So really, I think we should have a global network state that can govern these things, where it's no nation, it's actually in the hands of some experts that we have voted in to be controlling the policies around these things. And so the more we talk about this, more aware, the more scared, the more we can actually start to see those things brought about. So yeah, you're bang on there, Kim, with the concerns, and with we need some governance structure around it that just isn't there at the moment. We're relying on the goodwill, the good behavior of OpenAI, of some of these other bodies, Microsoft behaving well, which big private entities don't have the best track record of, particularly if we look at the last few years of the application of the technology with election coercion and things like that.
I watched a documentary recently with, I guess it's a podcast, video podcast with Mo Gaudet. Have you heard of Mo Gaudet?
No.
He was big in Google, I think, and he's saying that we need to be very scared of AI and the way that it's going. But actually, I think he said 0.1% or 1% of the population kept training it to do good things, to show us that we want good things. Basically, he was saying, if he put in to Facebook, I think that he liked, or Instagram, that he liked a certain person who was playing a guitar, and so then it was rock, And so the next day on his feed, he had all these rock players and he didn't like the music, so he was swiping them away. And the next day he got all these women who were playing rock music. And he said, because I like the first one, you're almost training them to do stuff by what you do. So if all the good people who have good intentions actually help train the bots, then we can train it to go good. Whereas if we don't, and we leave the bad guys to train it to do bad, it'll go that way, because it's just learning from what we are showing it. It was
that's exactly where the technology is at the moment. It's all the real accuracies that we're seeing in those visual interpretations, things like that, are through a human feedback loop. So the employees of these engines are fixing the glitches that they see in the outputs from these artificial engines. And so actually that feedback loop is what is really crucial to creating a friendly AI. And that's certainly where we're at now. But that is rapidly being overtaken, because the answers that it's giving are accelerating. The quality of the answers it's giving are accelerating beyond our ability to provide that human feedback fast enough. And so it does need the brakes putting on it somewhere, I believe. Elon Musk has talked about it. And there's, meetings between some of the heads of these big technology companies, Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google. They all, gather together, talk about the spend on AI and where it's going. And, then you've got the other proponents in the space who say, actually, having it siloed in one entity like OpenAI is not good for the space. We should actually be putting this ability, this power into the hands of multiple organizations. And so you've got Stable Diffusion. I forget the name of the organization behind it, Stable AI. But anyway, this is a graphics generation engine. And they've created a way to compress down all the abilities of AI into, and all the guys have to compress this down into, a small file, 200 gigabytes, something size of a hard drive. And that can easily be passed around the world and have, the full power of the answers from these AI engines actually offline. And you can imagine that being put into schools around the world and actually having, students with no internet access, with rare access to power, be able to learn from an AI engine, which is a compressed version of the whole, knowledge of the human race. And so, that can then increase the growth and development of humans and their abilities and improve our standard of living. But likewise, it could also be manipulated and coerced into providing a particular agenda or a particular type of answer. And so then you're starting about, we're back into the mass manipulation sort of thing. So yeah, there's a whole lot of tech in AI coming that is coming on fast and strong, and so be aware of it. But also, this is a crypto space, so think and talk about those things and how that'll be your use of those AI engines and the way you invest. Well, we are coming up to the hour, and Luca's always pretty prompt, so I think I have the ability to stop the recording there, so I'll do that. Thank you all for joining. Luca will be back on in his regular slot next week, I hope. And again, encourage you, if you want to drop into my call, if you need more of this sort of stuff, then come along to mine, which is in half an hour after Luca's each Friday morning. And you can get to mine through this link, which I'll drop into the chat. All right, thanks for coming.